Good evening. Welcome. My name is MacKenzie Wilson. You're tuned in to the Alberta Landlord Shoptalk, the only show dedicated to Alberta landlords. Um, Tonight is a little bit of a different night. My partner in crime, Chris Noble, is away on assignment. Those are his words he told me. So we won't have him tonight, unfortunately. But I've worked very hard. I'm going to bring back a returning landlord that we've had a few times on our show now, Bill Biko out of Calgary. He'll be my partner in crime for tonight. And then we have a new landlord out of Central Alberta. Her name is Isabelle. Very well experienced. She's got over 14 doors of her own. Plus, she's managed over hundreds of doors in a very long career in the property management space. So very excited to have these two folks on. The show tonight, as you have read the description, is all about leases. It's going to be super awesome. It was a great recommendation by one of the fellow members. Thank you, Lisa Madden, for the tip on that. So we're going to talk about terms, clauses, conditions, lease structuring, how do you present the lease, anything and everything to do with leases. This is the show for you tonight. So if you've got your questions, get them queued up, throw them in our comments on the feed. We'll definitely get to them and help you guys out. At that point, let's bring in our two landlords. Bill and Isabelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
MacKenzie.
Perfect. So as always, I'll give you guys a quick little moment here to give a bit of a personal introduction because I usually miss a thing or two. So Bill, I'll let you go first. Who are you?
Okay, hi, I'm Bill Biko. I am the educated landlord. I've been helping landlords since mid-2000s, I guess I would say. Started out, created AlbertaEviction.com, where I help landlords deal with the eviction problems they have with tenants, and expanded on that to the educated landlord, where I help landlords basically around the planet now with some of the basics of being a landlord. So that's me. On to Isabelle. Let's hear about you.
Okay, this is my first life, so let's wish me good luck. I'm a mom of two amazing children, a wife of a supportive husband. My values are I'm a very positive person, drive for excellence, and very caring person. So that's why when MacKenzie reached out and said, "Can you do you want to be a guest?" I said, "Sure. I want to help when I can, and I'm happy to be here tonight and see how I can help all of you." So for professionally wise, I am a real estate investor. So I have 14 doors, like MacKenzie was saying. I did 6 joint venture partner. I have 5 agreements for sale, did 50,000 at least of education in different programs. So got myself educated, did the whole licensed property management course because I am also licensed property manager on top of doing my own houses. And I'm mostly right now busy also with appraiser. So I'm a new candidate member for almost a year now, a year next month. And I just switched firm. I'm with Red Deer Appraisal. So I'm located in Central Alberta and doing mostly business in Central Alberta.
Perfect. And I'm going to throw out a quick kudos and thank you, Isabelle. You reached out to me after 6 p.m. tonight, and you made yourself available to help out our show. I had to do some last-minute juggling to work around some people's schedules. So thank you very much for making time tonight.
It's a pleasure.
Perfect. So as we talked about, the show is all about leases. It's a question we see asked often in the group. Everything from how to structure it to every nuance out there. There's always a question coming about it. So on that note, where do you guys want to start? Bill, I know you made some good notes there. Do you want to pick one of your go-to topics and we can kind of start going off of it?
You know, this one's come up in some of your questions before, and maybe not directly, but one of the big things is we can't give tenants keys until we have our leases and all our walkthrough and paperwork signed and all the money paid.
Well, you can, but what do you recommend?
You can, but it's much more of a challenge. You really need to, before any keys are released, you need your leases signed, you need your walkthrough done, you need your first month rent, and you need your security deposit all paid and processed. You know, if they're giving you a check that night, that's not good enough because it can bounce. You need it either bank draft, money order, e-transfer earlier in the day, something along that line. So that's the very first place to start. You know, so many landlords, they fall in the trap. It's like, I'll get you the security deposit next week. I just got to get it back from my other landlord, and it never turns up. So
Okay.
if you're not getting all this stuff up front, you can have problems right away.
And
So-
legally, they can even say, sorry, Bill,
Yeah, they
that
don't have to pay.
if the security deposit is not paid before the first day, they can refuse to pay it, and that will be accepted by law. So
I did not know that. That is a good tip, pro tip right there. So make sure you collect it well in advance of taking possession.
Exactly. So that's my starting point. Isabelle,
Okay.
what do you got?
So same question I'll ask you, Isabelle. So let's say you've picked the tenant, you know you're going to go with them. How do you go about getting the sign the lease, and then how do you handle the process up to giving possession?
I did sometime email it when people were away and all that, but I find out that when they see it before and read it, sometime when I meet them and I want to put some accent on a few things that it's more important, I read it. So I really like to sit. Usually I go to a McDonald's, and I do that always with very often with my family involved. So my kids are playing in McDonald's slides there, or we go at park, and then I tell them that it will take probably 45 minutes. Plan a 45 minutes for me to meet with you, and then I will have them initial the bottom of each page because I went to court a few times and I always won, knock on wood, but everything is very straightforward, and I tell them I have many rules. So for me, it's very important, and even beside some clause in my contract or beside the rent or stuff like that, I even have initial them, even the initial each page. So for me, it's very important that I go through the main thing. I don't read the whole thing, but I talk like this and just say, okay, so this is what's important. This is what does that mean, the non-smoking? What does that mean, the plants, when I talk about 3 plants? So a bunch of stuff like that. So I like to meet with them and have them sign it. I go back and print it and then give them a copy within the 10 days. The real copy. And also one trick that I find out, if you write at the bottom of the copy you're giving them that please take this duplicate as a copy of the original, and then I sign it, very often when they want to change their license, their address, then because it's a copy, because of that sentence with a blue pen, it does work for them, and they never call me back again for saying this is a copy, registry doesn't accept it. So that's what I do.
Interesting. And you make me think now. So I've been doing it now for the last 2 years. I do digital signing. So there's lots of services for DocuSign or HelloSign.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that. And I've never once been asked. Mind you, I'm thinking I've done it 5 or 6 leases now, but I've never been asked about it not being original. So that's an interesting point.
So like as property manager, I did do a rent up of 157 suites. So met with all of them during it was getting built, rent this all place in 6 weeks when the market was hot, and then keep it busy for a year and a half. But it was a month to month. So I did meet with a lot of people, and then my personal one, even I still meet with them. It's my time. Either if ever I don't do the lease signing, if my husband was around and was doing it, I will be there to move in at least walk through. Like it's my time with the lease signing to explain how serious this is. That brings bread to the table of my kids. I'm not messing up with this. It's still a business. I'm easygoing, but this is still a contract. And so I take time to show it to them and have them initial and explain everything. So after they say, oh, but you didn't tell me this. Oh, I did not know about, no, you actually initial beside it and you got it.
Yeah, exactly. And you highlight a really good point of documentation. Everything in this business, to get rid of the hearsay of the tenant versus the landlord is documentation and different evidence. And if you can layer that in with extra check marks and signatures and initials on your contract, it really gets rid of the gray area. So yeah. I like that.
And for a trick, for us landlord, I always scan it after and save it. If ever there's something wrong with my paper copy, there's a fire in the filing cabinet, there is a safe scan digital copy too, when we do still paper. Like I know a lot of my friends are doing the virtual like you two and going more, especially with the COVID, but I still was able to find a table that was 2 meters apart and still show it to them.
A bingo table. Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Let's pick the next subject. I've got one on the top of my mind, utilities. Bill, how do you handle that subject?
Uh, Depends on the property. So, and I've kind of been changing my stance a little bit. We've talked about this before. So traditionally, I've always had the tenants pay the utilities. So it's nice to have them deal with it, and it's all separated, nice and simple. I'm moving more to the model where I can charge them for utilities, especially when you're dealing with suited properties. Just makes it a little simpler. And rather than waiting to get the bill and figuring it out, it seems to be better to get an average for the year, charge them a flat rate throughout the year with some clauses in there to increase it if they exceed it. But the important part is it needs to be separated out. It's not part of the lease anymore. It's a separate agreement. And you've got some special tactics for this as well, MacKenzie, because you talked about this, I think, a month and a half ago in one of the sessions.
It's been a conversation a few times. Yeah, it's very similar to you, Bill. It's a separate contract. So since it's not part of the lease that's governed under the RTA, I can go in and based on usage, if the tenants are maybe being silly and the bill's going up, I can say, hey guys, I'm gonna give you 30 days notice. Your new utility rate is gonna be this amount. So it gives me the ability to raise the utilities on demand as needed. And hopefully my goal with this is to motivate the tenant as if they're an owner, so they want to turn off the lights because they'll then save themselves money. Isabelle, how do you manage your utilities?
I do mostly like you, gentlemen. I do have single family home. These one are still asking them to pay when it's one house. So they registered with all the utilities. So they work on all their credit. I give them it's a chance for you to have with all those suppliers increasing your credit as well. And then they pay right away. So they definitely take care more. There's no windows open in the middle of the winter.
Yeah.
But my legal basement suite, my duplexes, even it's they all have to have utility separated and all that with Red Deer. I still do it flat fee, but apart. So it's just a utility lease agreement that it's not included in my lease. And in my lease, it says, but utility not included. But this is C separate lease agreement, utility agreement.
I have almost it's the same thing, not included, C utility agreement separately. So, and on that note too, I do an average as well. I don't look at every month and try to figure it out. I average it across. It's too much work. I average it across the year, and I add a little bit of a buffer in, and I kind of go from there. All my properties in Calgary are suited, so I have 1 meter for the entire up and down. I have 2 suites. So,
okay. Yeah. So it is expensive for me because I have 2 different suites. So I need 2 different bills. So I'm paying the admin fee, all of that, but I charge a flat fee and it's always $200, but it can be renewed. And there's also in the utility included that AC or heater, portable heater cannot be added or need to be discussed with the management first because that can be a big change, but it's writing in the lease that they have to have approval for that.
Do you have anything in your utilities lease that states when you can raise it?
It's automatic, 30 days notice. So
okay.
30 days notice, you cannot change it. But the tenants just love to be able to, fix. This is a fixed amount. So if I say my basement suite is 1,000 and my utility is 200, for them it's 1,200. It's fixed. They know it and they like to know it instead of being and it would be way too much work for us to follow the bill every month. But so it's a flat fee and they all love it.
Yeah, and I've gotten very similar feedback. It simplifies their life. They know what their numbers and their budget are, and typically, especially the more long-term renters, don't maybe manage the money in the best of ways. So simplifying their life with 1 number every month means they understand it and you're more likely to get paid on time.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Bill, pick the next one off of your cheat sheet there.
Rules were applicable is one of the ones I have on here. Really important to have a lot of rules that you might have for your property and your lease, just so you're covered off. And this is back to the documentation you were talking about. We broached onto this regarding parking. Something as simple as parking. If you've got a suited house, it's stated in the lease that the upper person may get the driveway and that it's not for the lower person. So these are the kind of rules that you've got to make sure fit into your property. It's not just a casual discussion where you mention it to them. It's down on paper, it's documented. And the rules can be anything from parking to taking care of the yard to dealing with garbage, but they've got to be included in there, or it just doesn't carry any weight if you do end up in some sort of hearing later.
Yeah, absolutely. What I do as well, same thing, write the rules down. I have some signage in some of my properties. So the one, I know you talked about this, we talked about this offline, Bill, but a simple one is I have a front loading washer in one property, and if the door stays closed after you run laundry through it, it seems to mold and it gets kind of smelly. So I have a little sticky note on the top that says leave door open after use, so it dries out every time. And I worded it, says your clothes will stink if you keep this door closed or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but now it's motivation to protect the clothes if they don't close or leave the door closed. But and another thing for laundry hours, so going back to making rules, is I will in my one property, the shared laundry backs onto the master bedroom in the basement suite. So, because it's a bit of a noise issue, I get the tenants to both tell me in an email, and they're both CC'd, so it's the same conversation, saying, we agree to laundry hours of such and such. I could care less what their laundry hours are. It doesn't matter to me. They could do laundry to 3 in the morning. I just want them to be on the same page so it can avoid any future conflict. And if it does arise, I go, look, you guys gave me your word. This is what you've agreed to. Work it out between the two of you, please. Isabelle, how do you manage some rules? Do you have any special rules that you've added from your experience over the years of things you do or don't allow?
It started with like maybe 5 or 6 rules. Then I think I have now 25. It's 2 pages long. That's mostly where my lease is 3 pages and my rules are 2 pages. But I go through that more than anything else with them. So there's something, if I go quickly through my 25 titles, is about.
Please do. I'm going to ask you questions as you go. That's a lot. That's good.
Furniture. So, I tell them about moving the furniture. So we will do the walkthrough. But let's say you just move in and now there's a big scratch there, then you will be responsible for it, right? Even you move it. And depending my flooring, I will say that, that laminate or vinyl, the vinyl, if you do a Rubbermaid with a rock underneath and draw this, that's how you will damage the vinyl plank. But that's about it. Like, it's very good for anything. But laminate and hardwood, if you drop water, like rush up to wet it, to dry it, because it will swell and then you will be charged for it. So moving furniture, floors, that's what I'm saying. Walls, I tell them about 1-inch finishing nails. That little gold one with the little hook. This is accepted. For me, the mounted TV, it's tolerated, not accepted. That means I will be charging you for patch and painting $100 for one wall. So everything is there, all my charges. So I have the garbage rule, like Bill was saying. I will get a fine if you did not pick it up because you didn't put the cover on it properly and a skunk went in it or something, and then it's all over the place. If you don't pick it up, I will be charged for it, and I will be sending the bill to you. Locks, you don't change your lock. It's not a way to communicate. It's by law, so it's in it. Yard, about landscaping as well, that you're responsible and what it is. Windows and doors, that they're all working. And if there's any hole in it, then you will be responsible for it. Noise. Very important. Be mindful with all my duplexes. So put runner in the hallway. Don't use your flip-flop, your slipper, not flip-flop, but your high heel at 6 in the morning, right? Be mindful of others. Then I explained that also with the music. So there's no piano, there's no instrumental there. There's the bylaw to respect, and I tell them the bylaw between 11 and 7, but at the same time, be mindful of others. So there's something there that I can use too, because all those clauses, sometimes I can use that for a termination notice. You're not following the rules. Even it's not just no rent payment, I can use that. So there's definitely animals about picking up their little thing, picking up this and all the fees, the plumbing. Don't try to be a plumber yourself. And if your 3 years old little nephew visit and drop a little car in there, don't snake it yourself, because you might damage the bottom of the toilet, and then I will be charging you for that. So electrical too. There's enough plugs here. Don't try to be an electrician. If there's anything, you ask me. You cannot just play with it. Aerials, no satellite. Curb appeal is very important for me. So you don't just add anything outside or add curtain outside like you can do from the inside of my window covering. You don't add anything outside. So that's important. Balconies, curb appeal again is important. It cannot be overcharged or have garbage on it and that stuff.
Right.
Fire risk, that's a good one. Fire risk about very often in the tenant insurance or even in my insurance, they say no live Christmas tree. So I said, read your tenant insurance properly. I'm pretty sure you have that. So my leases, my rules include no live Christmas tree because that's a first fire hazard. The sentence are better. Don't Google how to make a bomb in those apartments, and don't leave candle unattended. That's what I'm telling them. It's not necessarily writing that. It says fire risk and then the initial there. Entry, passageways, and halls. When it's common area and all that they cannot leave bikes and all their shoes outside. It's dangerous. It's a hazard. I have notices. Sometimes they do have businesses, and when it's few people or in the street, they go give their deals to, like everything needed to be added because it did happen. Everything that it's there. So people were starting to give pamphlet on the car, and then I pick up all that in the driveway all the time. The parking rules. So like you were saying too, it's you have that parking, the other one at that parking. And if someone is in your parking, then you call the bylaw to fix that. The guests are responsible to follow the same rule than yourself, because I'm not coming here to repeat the rules, because I went to some suite and then at 3 a.m, they were playing drum. I was like, sorry, there's an issue here. But they said, but this is my guest. It's not me. No, the guest is also responsible to follow all the rules. I guess I needed to add that. Lease break, my fees, my smoking, vape, any type of smoking, like it's extended to 3 sentences, that is non-smoking one, as well as plants, and the amount of plants that is allowed. So if some houses, I don't mind for 3 marijuana plants, it's a maximum of that. And it's written, and the initial beside that one as well. And the smoke detector, it's against the bylaw, but I want them to, it's in my rules that they cannot, and if they need to, they cannot buy the battery, I will be happy to come and change the battery for them, and I will come and replace the battery in the smoke detector. But there's no way, if they don't know how to cook, they'll need to learn how to cook, and it needs to be plugged and in working condition. And my last one is just about the heating, ventilation, AC. Even they have a utility agreement on the side, they still are not allowed to add AC or heater without permission. Yeah, those small rules.
That I was making some notes as I was listening, and you remind me of 2 other things that I do, which kind of relate in the same area. So, on how you protect your flooring and moving furniture and protecting from scratches, I have a felt tip policy, meaning old furniture has to have those soft bottoms so they don't damage the floors. And then I also have a no hole policy. So I used to allow people putting holes within moderation for hanging pictures, and I always just say, if it's this size of wall, I can expect you to hang 1 or 2 pictures. That might mean 2 to 4 holes. If I came back here and there was 10 holes or 50 holes, that's called excessive, and that's damage, and you'll be charged for it. But I've had really good experience with, you know what? I'm actually going to make a video on this, but I have it right here. Is these 3M innovation hooks. Some people say they damage walls, and I've seen that, and I think that only happens when the paint hasn't adhered properly. You can peel off a layer with it, but generally, I out of all the properties I've used, they work really well. I think the other rule of thumb is if it's like a 5-pound hook, and you're hanging a 5-pound picture, use double the hook. So you have whatever the capacity of the hook is. Make sure the weight of your picture is only half of the capacity. Then you won't have anything being torn or ripped off the walls. And for $30, I provide this in my moving kit when the tenant moves in their welcome package. And if it saves me having to organize a tray to come out for drywall and repair, which, like you said, is a minimum of $100, it's money well spent, because that's just one less thing to worry about on on switching the unit over to a new rental.
So I do, in my welcome basket, I do give the filter for the how do you call that? Under
the felt tips, like for chairs and table legs. Yeah.
So I do that in the welcome basket, but I don't do the 3M. But that's a good idea because I do talk about them, and I did see so many times when I do move out, I say, "Oh, you still have some hooks there. Do you want to remove them?" Because I want to make sure they work. Sometimes there's honestly, I saw it so many times. There's 20 on one wall.
Yeah.
17 of them will work like a charm, but there will be 3 who will peel up the drywall. So the 3M did not, I didn't see damages with 3M company, but there's other companies that I did see peeling the drywall like solid just by removing it. And the person was doing one after one. So she knew the technique, and many of them knew the technique, were doing it in front of me, but some, they were just peeling the drywall. So that's what I'm telling them. You take a chance with these one. If you want to go with 3M, I highly recommend that company. The other company, I did see some damages, but at the same time, the 1-inch finishing, it's just a little teeny thing I can do with my finger patch, and then just a quick paint, and it doesn't show. So I still recommend this, but I tell them if you want to do the 3M, no problem.
Yeah, for sure. Bill, any thoughts on rules and damaging?
I like everything. We didn't talk about renters insurance. Do you have a clause in there about renters insurance?
I do. This is in my lease. It's not even just in my.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when earlier when you were saying, oh, can they come in a couple of days in advance and all that? But now the lease is written for that day. So let's add a little paper and show me your tenant insurance. But very often the tenant insurance, they don't want to start a few days in advance because it's another month, right? They charge per month, the insurance company. So the insurance will not start before September 1st. So if you tell them to move in advance and there's a fire or anything, they don't have tenant insurance. The 2 days or 3 days. So it's very risky. So I don't let them in if I don't have a copy of the tenant insurance as well as all the monies, of course.
Yep, totally agree.
Okay. Pet addendums?
Oh, yes.
Pet addendums? What do you got, Isabelle?
I'm a dog lover. And we went to Belize and we moved back. And we had 19 doors before, went to Belize, run a resort for 5 years, moved back now to Alberta, settle, because my last name is Settle. So we settled down and we started establishing ourselves here. So we could not find quickly when we just decided to move right away from Belize, we could not find a place for dogs. And it was like, okay, all of my apartment has to be pet friendly. And large dog, they don't make that much mess than little one, even easier. So I don't have necessarily that restriction about the breeds and the size, depending when it's a duplex. I don't want necessarily to have a Rottweiler if the other one is a little Schnauzer or something.
Yeah.
I know which type of clients is in which neighborhood, and then I go. Sometimes I do have a very big one in the Roddy, and I do have them, but they match. I always work on my match. So I have the pet, it's on the side. I do $250 non-refundable pet fee and $50 per month. So it's important that it's non-refundable, because if not, it's included as your security deposit and you cannot have more than 1 month rent. So I do non-refundable, but this is on my rental application. If I really, really like them and the market is as is, or that's what I use to say no or yes to someone. So when I really like them, I say, here's the rental application, fill it up, but you know this, I will waive it for you. I really appreciate you. I feel you. So you will just have the $50 per month. If it's 2 pets, sometime I will do $250 or $50 or $75. I will count it as 1.5. So I do deals depending of the customer and the type of pets. Very often I find that dogs are less damages than the cats. So the cats, some people do charge 25. Sometimes I do the 225, but if I do have a cat, I do charge it $250 non-refundable.
Yeah, and I think to that comment, the fees are really what your market will bear, right? If I can charge more, I would. I think we're a little more competitive in Calgary, or maybe I just got to step up my game here a bit. I charge $35 on most cases. I have a I guess this is not written anywhere, but just for myself, I have a no exotic pet fee or pet policy. I just, that and my wife, I'm not comfortable around snakes and other certain reptiles that, we actually had someone post in the group here earlier this year in the spring. The lady moved out, she lost her snake, didn't say anything about it, got out of the aquarium, and then 2 weeks later it was vacant. They came in to do some cleaning to get ready for the next tenant. The next tenant was a brand new mom with I think it was a 2 or 3 month old, and the snake fell over the curtain of the curtain hanging over the patio door, and I would just it makes my skin crawl a bit. It's just not my jam. It's a personal thing. I have to be able to be comfortable to walk in the property, do my inspections, to go check for maintenance, to whatever it might be. And so I'm not super comfortable with very large dogs. On that note, though, I might start switching that. Like, I do allow some larger breeds, but we had a gal on the show a few shows back now. Her name was Trish Fraser, and she had a phenomenal tip. Was she gets for her way to approve a new pet, because she's also a dog lover, she wants to see a recent veterinary bill or vet bill. Because if someone's going to be responsible and actually make sure that their animal properly behaves, they probably look after them, their health as well, and they probably should have a recent bill showing shots or an examination or something. That if they can't produce that kind of document or show that their pet's licensed with the city, if they don't kind of have any of that kind of documentation, they're probably less responsible and they probably less control over that animal.
Yeah, that's good tip. And also ask to meet with the dog, and if ever there's a dog upstairs, then they have to meet too. So at the viewing, they come with their dog and they meet with upstairs to make sure they will agree. Because if I have a good relationship and I want to keep the one upstairs or downstairs, then I want to make sure to show them that, I show you respect, and I want to make sure the dogs will get along. I do not accept snake either. Even I live in Belize, I do not like them. And as appraiser, one day I went into a house and there was a snake and I needed to walk close. So I was like, I don't want to see it. So I was walking. But yeah, so because mostly the snake or any reptile is because we feed them with crickets. I don't want crickets in my house. And that is especially in apartments or different, more than one unit, it can go all over the place. So definitely no reptiles and no aquarium, because the water damage is the most expensive one. So big aquarium, this is no, or a water mattress for me. This is a no, and it's in the lease.
Water mattress, that's old school. I haven't seen one of those in a while, but also, I want to wrap up on your pet comment and having bring the dog to the viewing. You get to see the dog. I've never met a dog that lied to me at a viewing. Right? They are who they are with their personality. Animals don't lie, so absolutely have them come in person and you get a first-hand experience of who they are. Cool, awesome. Hey, we have our first question coming live. Let's answer it. 1 second here. I'm going to pop it up on the screen. So. I have to do double duty. So usually with Chris and Chris is watching my live feed. So I've brought it up over here because sometimes the comments don't come through with the name, as in this case. But this is Leanne. And Leanne asked, do you tailor or customize your lease agreements based on experiences in the industry? Some lease agreements can be very basic. So I would probably just say from Isabelle, you said you started out with 5 or 6 rules and now you're at 25. So of course, over the years, you've added, as you've learned and gone through different situations, you've added rules based on the outcomes of what you've experienced.
Yes, and I have a bed bug addendum. I have the utility. I have the garage sometimes that it's also a side. I have a sheet just with all the cleaning time. So when you get it clean. When you move out, I'm expecting to be as clean, professionally done, or you do it very well. And this is my expectation. And if you don't do it as this list here, then that's the time it takes to clean it, and that you will be charged at $30 an hour for that. So for a fridge, it's an hour for this. So it's all detail of all the items in the suite and the cost it charged. So I said, for transparency, again, it brings bread to the table of my kids. I don't want any surprises at the end. So you get a copy of what will be the charge for the cleaning, as well as all the repair. If there's anything missing, damaged, or neglected, then this is the cost for a key missing, a light bulb burn, all those stuff that are pricing And so I give them that plus the lease. And yes, it always add few things all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill, do you got any more things to add on
Two
that?
things to add to that. First, one handy trick is, especially with all those costs, is if you do have a tenant moving out, send them a list of all those costs as a reminder a month before, so that they have the information fresh in front of them.
They might scrub a bit harder.
Exactly. When you know it's going to cost them $2 to replace a light bulb, or they could buy it themselves for $1. They're pretty good about replacing it. And then, of course, your $5 light change fee on top of that. So, send that out a month before the end of their lease. What else? Well, there was one other thing. I've already lost it. See, I should have written that down.
One thing we've kind of talked about, maybe I want to highlight in a different way, is we talk about not having utilities as part of the lease. So anything that you capture inside a lease is governed by the RTA, the Residential Tenancy Act. Now, if you pull things out and do separate agreements, so maybe a separate pet lease, a separate utilities agreement, you're removing the, how would I want to word this? Those things you pull out are now governed under a different body of law. So there's a good reason. So I know another thing you mentioned, Isabelle, is having the garage not in the lease. If you do a storage agreement for the garage, now that's I can't remember the legal name, but there's a different governing body, and it's a lot more stricter in the sense that if things go awry, you've got more tools at your disposal with the law to correct the situation. Whereas if you included storage with your RTA lease, you're going to have less ways to handle a discrepancy if something comes up that is a problem.
And to help all my cause, in case I had an issue, but again, I didn't need to use it, but I do have in the lease, it says additional provision. And this is the pet fee, this is the utility, this is the disclosure of cleaning and repair charges. So everything is there, and they initial that they got a copy of that as well. So it's kind of for the lease, but it's outside too.
Okay.
Bill, did it come back to you yet? Your thought?
I wrote it down. So they asked if you tailor or customize your lease based on experience. I actually customize it based on some of the properties as well. So much like you said with the garage, some properties are a certain way, some are a different way. Similar aspects, the lease where you have a suited property might be entirely different than somebody renting a full house or a townhouse. Slightly different rules because there may be a condo board involved or other aspects. So it's variations on your lease.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. One other thing I picked up too, and I was kind of writing down some notes here, is we talked about a home business. Now, so how do we define a home business first, right? Especially in a very post-COVID world, almost everyone's working from home in some capacity. Now, do you consider that a home business where they log in over a computer and they type? No. Awesome. Okay, you're shaking your head, Isabelle, because I've had tenants ask me about that, and I was like, you know what? I'm actually not sure in that. So I wanted to get your guys' feedback on how you define what a home business is and isn't. Initially, when I looked at it, is where if you have additional foot traffic coming to site, to the house, that's kind of an increased liability from an insurance perspective. And if they're operating some sort of business or they're doing something physically in the property or in the garage building using power tools, maybe mechanical maintenance on a vehicle, those things, what would be the right word? They provide or they increase a different type of risk level for your insurance provider, and that's where you could kind of run into hot water. But anything that's online at the computer, I think it's probably pretty relaxed and it doesn't really fall in the same realm. But maybe correct me if I'm wrong.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Things like daycares and haircutting kind of get into that area where it's like now you've got a whole bunch of extra kids on the property, and if you're accepting dogs and pets upstairs, now that might be a different thing in a suited property. Haircutting, again, more risk. You just
say no.
That's not what you want. You want to minimize your risk as a landlord, so you protect yourself with the great leases and follow all the rules and make sure you have less risk all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you do accept, make sure you look with your landlord insurance that it's allowed for for the renter to have a business. And if they do have a business, then if our insurance is allowing it to have a daycare or someone doing nails and all that, then they need to have a business license, be registered, all the certification, all the insurance. So there's a lot of stuff to provide if they want to do it.
Absolutely. And I just thought of something right now. I love these conversations because it gets me thinking. I'm like, oh yeah, this is super important. So another thing when we talk about people living at the property. So let's say you have a family coming in, it's a mom and dad, they have let's say a 20-year-old son who's going to university, and then maybe a daughter that's still in elementary. So it's 4 people, 3 of them are adults. Who do you guys put in the lease, and who all signs the lease? Isabelle, you're smiling. You go first.
I'm what?
You're smiling. Yeah, I saw you smile. So how do you handle? Would you only put the 2 parents on the lease, or do you put the son as well on the lease?
Above 18 years old has to be on the lease. And if you have a visitor for a couple of weeks, it's fine. As long as it's 30 days and extra, they have to be on the lease. And to be on the lease, they have to fill up the whole rental application. I have to approve them. Then they will be on the lease. And everyone is responsible for the full rent. It's not half or a quarter. So you're all responsible for the full rent. That's what I was saying. So the kids turning 18 definitely needs to be there.
Yeah, awesome. Totally.
And a maximum of how many people. So if this is a 4-bedroom, then it's a maximum of 6 people. If it's a 3-bedroom, it's a maximum of 5. And if it goes above that, then we will need to discuss to make sure it's safe.
Absolutely, and that's part of one of my pre-screening questions is what the number of people will be living at the property. Because again, I don't want to rent a 2-bedroom condo to a family of 6. There'll be a little bit of increased wear and tear. Yeah, absolutely.
Too, right? So,
but you'd be surprised if you don't ask those questions. And you know what? Well, you would be surprised. But the other thing too is there's some cultural differences out there where that might be acceptable in some other countries. It's just you want to make sure it seems pretty straightforward, but you still have to ask these questions.
It's actually illegal to ask that in a lot of the states.
How many people would be moving in?
Yeah, you can't ask that in New York. You can't ask it in California, and there's a few others as well.
Wow.
Happy to live in Canada.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Alberta of all places. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, as we're going to, folks that you guys are watching, please throw your questions up in the comments here. We'll definitely post them live and answer them. If you like what we're doing and you've gotten some great takeaways from the show, throw us a like, say hello, mention something. It's like it's like a free high five that's well, I butchered the sentence. It's like a high five that's COVID free. It's just a good way of supporting the channel, and we're enjoying doing this. So for providing value, you hear a good tip, let us know so we can even talk more about it as well. So we're at 7:40, so we definitely got some time here.
Should we talk about lease terms?
Yes, good point. Okay.
Start
us off, Bill.
All right. So this also came up recently in the question area there. Somebody was asking about, I believe it was this group, was asking about signing in a tenant for 6 years. They wanted the place for 6 years, wanted to sign a 6-year lease. And my take on that is no way. You don't want to lock in something that long. But the other end of that spectrum is if you've got new tenants and you're just kind of feeling them out, it doesn't hurt to put them on like a 3 or a 6 month fixed term lease, because you can always not renew at the end and move on to the next people. You know, you'd like to make sure you've got the right people in place before you commit to somebody, but sometimes they feel right, but you're not quite sure, and you kind of move forward. So go with a 3-month term or a 6-month term and just get to the end of that term so you can move on, and then make a decision whether to extend for another 6 months or 9 months so you can get to that 1-year term where you may or may not be able to raise the rates depending on the economy. And go ahead.
I was going to. Oh no, I thought you were done. You finish your thought, and then I'm going to ask Isabelle. Chris told me to get Isabelle to translate this comment that he wrote in French because I can't read it. But can you see what it says on the bottom?
Yeah, thank you for attending the show tonight.
Oh, perfect.
So welcome. De rien, Chris.
Awesome. Sorry, continue, Bill.
That's basically the meat of that. Isabelle has a slightly different take. We again discussed that previously. So let's bounce over there and see what she has to say.
Yeah. So as a property manager for bigger business before, I was doing month to month, so periodic term and month to month renewal. So they only needed to give me 30 days to before they move out. For myself, I think 30 days is always too much. A very, very good tenant will be looking for apartment between the 16 to the 22 of the previous month. So every month I've always been very, very busy between the 16 and the 22. That's when the good person I calling you and say, hey, I'm looking for next month, not this coming month, but the next month. So I like to have at least 6 weeks. So I'm asking, I wanted to find a way to have that 6 weeks, and month to month you cannot. Another way that the bank were asking is that when you do a full lease, a year lease, they like it. But here in Alberta, it's very common that people do a 1 year and then go on periodic after month to month. They don't resign. My lease are periodic year to year. So it's an automatic renewal. So let's say I'm starting a lease on September 1st. Then the people, if I ever want to change something, so I'm starting the lease on September 1st, it will finish August 31st, 2021. If I want to change the rent or anything in the lease, I will give them 3 months notice. So by June 1st, June 1st, I will tell them that here's the new rent. That will change that if you want. This is the new lease. By August 1st, they have to tell me if they don't renew. If by August 2nd, they don't say anything to me, it's an automatic renewal for a full year. So we don't go month to month after. It's year to year. So the bank used to say yes, easy to me when they say, oh, it's a full year. So they think it's good. At the same time, they're still, I'm telling when I meet with the people at the lease signing, I said, there's still a lease break fee. You can still, life happened, you get this dream job somewhere. I will help you as long as you help me and you cooperate to do showing right away when they call. But again, I would respect the 24 hours notice. But if you want to move out and not be responsible, because you will be responsible for rent and utility until someone move in and pay the rent. So if you are helping me and showing, like accepting showing as they want and making sure the place is nice, then you will be, out of your responsibility faster. So, but there's a fee for that too, because this is the lease. I'm giving you a discount for this year lease. So if ever you break the lease, then there will be a $250 admin fee for cutting this lease. And then after $50 per month, because for me, it's a lot of viewing and marketing that I did not plan to do. So you also do that on top of being responsible for rent and utility. And they initial that in the lease as well.
I like that. And I've heard this lots of, absolutely, I totally agree with you. Life happens, something might come up, they need to break the lease for whatever reason. As long as they're willing to cooperate, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't help them and work with them. But you make me think now, and I've heard these tips before, is maybe it might be worth maybe printing up a little bit of a document saying the lease break procedure. If you choose to break the lease, here's the things you have to be aware of. But if you are willing to, sign off saying that you allow me to do showings less than 24 hours, all these small things that make the job that much easier. If you're willing to do this, maybe we'll waive some fees or something like that just to smooth out the process. I don't know.
I'll write that down, but I will definitely discuss it. This is like you want to get out, and because they know it's a 2 months notice that I'm looking forward to it, and that lease is made because I want that 2 months notice. So when it's very rare that someone will call me and just say, okay, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. They will also try, okay, can I leave in 2 months or 3 months? They will tell me in advance to make sure. And can we do something about the lease? And that's where we'll say, as long as we do it and we cooperate, at the move out, we'll discuss that. And I waive it most of the time because it was, and even during that COVID, I did have 5 turnover, I think, in total. And in 48 hours, they were rented. And I had sometimes the 20 to 30 application went with 7, accepting 7 viewing, and then between those 7 chose 1. So it depends your marketing, how you do it, and there's a bunch of stuff we can do about how to even do an ad that people will click on it and do it. But definitely, yeah, it's possible.
Sounds like we should have you on another guest appearance of the show in the future about marketing.
Yeah, I guess.
Perfect. Thoughts, Bill, on the stuff we kind of talked about just now?
Yeah, if you've got tenants leaving, it's so important to get their cooperation for showings and keeping the place clean and all this other stuff. So if you've got leverage, like potentially waiving a fee here or there, or just something hanging over them to make them a little more cooperative versus somebody who simply doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're interrupting their life because it doesn't make a difference. So they make it more difficult for you to show it. They don't clean up as much. They have all their stuff in the way. And then you end up vacant for another month, which makes you very sad.
Yeah.
I never had one, sorry, cutting you off, MacKenzie.
Oh,
I never had one who say, because of the COVID, you cannot show it. So within those 5, I was like, if you leave all the doors open and you turn on all the lights on, we won't be touching anything. And I will still sanitize everything at the end as well. But, you do those rules. And yes, everything like Bill is saying is your relationship with them. If you have a good relationship and you sometimes if you want to charge on something, you will talk to it after the move out, the walkthrough, or you will even just write it down in the statement at the end. But you never, I never get into conversation or before that it's too dangerous or too hot because I want their cooperation and I play it straight.
Yeah, absolutely. A question came up. I'm just trying to see who it's from. Sorry, I'm a little slow in the draw. Oh, Sandra asked. So Sandra asked, can you please recommend where to acquire a detailed lease? It's kind of a tough one. I'm going to take my take. I'll give you my take on. I know in Calgary here we have the CRRA, the Calgary Residential Rental Association. They do provide a very good basic lease. It might be even a little bit better than a basic lease, but all these rules and things we've talked about, it comes from experience. So being a part of this group, for example, and you hear the people's stories and they say, oh, I just had this tenant do this situation. Those are where you take the observations and turn those into rules into your leases. I don't personally know of a good source to source a lease right now. Maybe Bill or Isabelle, where do you guys, have a good place to get a detailed lease, and at least for Alberta sake?
Isabelle?
I did work for a big company, so I learned a lot then, as well as, you can always take for a meal for a property manager and ask for, recommendation. But as well, this group is absolutely amazing for taking tricks all the time. Any education course, even I pay over $50,000 already. I still go to many seminar and conference, and there's always one thing that you will learn, like tonight, right? Just from you talking here, it's like, oh yeah, I need to do that. That's a good trick. So it's by experience that you always improve it all the time. Yeah.
It's something that Chris and I have talked about. We might bullet this in the future. We've got some things in the work. We'll see if we can find a way to make a database of all these things that have happened in the group and create some sort of repository that we can help people out with. But as of today, I don't know anything out there that is definitely worthwhile for a detailed lease. One thought as we're kind of, again, going through this, and I thought, I don't know it off by heart, but I can paraphrase it, but maybe one of you two can beat me to it. There's a special sentence that you have to have in all your leases for Alberta in the RTA. And do you guys know what it is? Something about if the act and the act prevail, if there's a difference between the lease and the act shall prevail. I don't know exactly how it's worded though.
Very close. Good job.
Yeah.
Okay. So
basically your lease has to state that it follows the Residential Tenancy Act and the act prevails. That's the short version. So you can put whatever you want in your lease, but if it's against the rules, it doesn't count.
Yeah, basically. So basically, if there's a discrepancy or there's something wrong in your lease compared to the RTA, the Residential Tenancy Act, it says the act shall prevail over your lease. And basically, you have to have that. There's if you Google Alberta RTA and you look at the handbook, it's very clearly stated what that is. We've paraphrased it, but it's something like that. So that's also another thing you should have in your leases. Did we talk about the difference between termed and month-to-month and the difference of control you have over your property and lease if you pick one or the other?
Didn't touch on that. So there's a little bit of confusion with that as well. So with the month-to-month, you have a hard time getting rid of tenants if they're borderline. So you're supposed to require a valid reason to evict them. And if they're just borderline tenants, you don't really have a valid reason. And that gets into a kind of a gray area with the act. Now, Isabelle's talking about a 90-day notice no matter what, but that's backfired on some landlords because they don't have a valid reason to evict the tenants. Now, what's your experience been on that?
Me or Isabelle?
Isabelle.
Sorry, I was reading the message from Chris Noble. What's my, can you just repeat? Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
You've talked about giving a 90-day notice on a month-to-month, and that hasn't always held up in courts when they've protested against being given notice.
Yeah, no,
you need a reason.
Yeah, to have them move out and all that, this is definitely more difficult. If you just want to take back the suite, you need to have the family. Like, it's different rules. Even it's not just the 90 days. That doesn't work. The 90 days is more if I want to change the rent. So if I didn't increase it this year because of the COVID and I want to change it next year, then I will use my 3 months notice. But honestly, I've been doing it for 20 years and I actually never increase it. I never use my 3 months. If they like it and it's doing well, then I keep it. And there's enough turnover that I increase it between turnover. But if I have a good tenant, I will not increase it. Yeah. And if I don't have a good tenant, there is a lot of, compared to what we think, we can evict people for, I even evict someone that was giving a lot of troubles, noise, smoking in a big multi-apartment. But, it's so hard to get them, to catch them smoking and it smell in the whole hallway and the other suite. So I was able to evict them for something as simple as garbage on the balcony because I had that in my rules. So it's not, and it was noted. So you have 3 times, date, noted, you have garbage there, and I send you this. You don't remove it, I will charge you $25. And then 3rd time you will be evicted. 2nd time, same thing. And I'm charging you if you don't move it by that day. And 3rd time I will evict you. And then 3rd time, this is the eviction because you again have garbage and this is again my rule. And I went to court with this and I won everything.
Wow.
So it needed to be out. So honestly, that's why as much as possible to have more rules in your, and very clear rules that you can use beside no rent payment. Because smoking is sure difficult to evict for that and noise complaint, but it's possible. And the rent, a lot of people are saying, oh, can you just evict after 3 times with rent being late or not? Yes, if you give 3 months, 3 consecutive months where you send them eviction, termination by if you don't pay, and this is the amount, 3 times you can evict them. Just say, okay, continuously being late on rent, you're now being evicted. So
breach of payment terms.
Yeah.
So this is a good point, and I'm going to throw us back to Bill. Typically, when you have a tenant that's maybe not the best, and they're all walking that line where they should be evicted. Now, they're typically not just breaking one rule. They're probably breaking a handful. Maybe there's noise, there's garbage, there's property damage, there's late rent, a bunch of other things. Now, when you go and do your eviction, do you do your eviction on one item or do you collect all these items together? And Bill, I know you love talking about this point.
Everything you can throw at them. Every single breach is listed on there. Now, my understanding is with the new online, you're only allowed to list, I think it's 3 items now.
Oh.
So, I don't have a workaround on that, but I've evicted tenants for, I drag out 6 or 7 things, and it's like, this is this. I've got evidence for this and this and this and this. It's like they might slip through non-payment because they caught up the payment, but they're not going to get away with the broken window or the smoking in the property that I have all these witnesses for,
or no pets or whatever.
Pets, yeah.
So why do you list on your eviction not just the single item that you're ticked off about, but all of the things that are in breach? Why would you do that?
in case they can provide some evidence disputing me and getting away with throwing the eviction out.
Yeah.
So it's the same reason my typical eviction package is like 100 to 120 pages. It's just documentation, all the backup of the backup, the whole timeline of everything. It's like, I've seen too often where the landlords complain that the Residential Tenancy Act isn't fair. It's not fair. I tried to evict the tenant and the tenant, won. Well, what did you show up with? Well, I had the one late piece of paper and my lease. It's like, that's not enough. I mean, you've got to prove that there's something wrong here, because we've got so many bad landlords out there who take advantage of the system. You got to show you're a good landlord with all the documentation, with all the paperwork, with all the processes, and that you're doing things right.
Yeah. And don't go with emotion. Just stick to the fact. Be very calm. The facts are there. And the picture, if you can date stamp your pictures, that's very, very helpful.
Yeah. And don't yell at the hearing officer is the other important one.
No, smile.
Yeah. I can't believe that lady didn't win when she yelled at the hearing officer. But anyway.
Yeah. Two things I want to note here. I'm going to go with the one off the top of my head, and then we got a question I want to get to, and we're at 8 o'clock, so we'll go a little bit longer here. When we go back to the advantages or the disadvantages, the differences, between a fixed and a month-to-month lease. Going back to the differences, I think the biggest thing I want to make sure everyone gets for a takeaway, especially if you're new at this, is a term lease, if it goes for 6 months or a year, and you can have any duration, by the way. These are just commonly used numbers. You could have a term of 37 days or 19 months, whatever that magic number is. You can do it to fit your situation. It's not only a year or 6 months, by the way. But the key thing is when you get to the end of the term, if you don't want to renew for whatever reason, it's not working out, it could be a difficult tenant that you're dealing with, you do not need to give a reason. You just you tell them that you're not renewing them. You need to give them some notice so they can pack up and move out, but you tell them that you're not renewing the lease, and then you're done with that situation. They have to move on. If you're in month to month, you have to have a valid reason to remove them from the property or to end a month to month lease, meaning you have to have, I'm going to go off the top of my head here, add in if I'm missing anything. You have to do a substantial renovation to the property. It's not just like, I need to kick you out for painting. It's because you're actually making some serious changes to the property. You have a family member moving in, or you're moving back to the property yourself. There's a third one, and I can't recall it right now.
You're selling it.
Oh, and you're selling the property. Yeah.
Right. Selling's a little different too, though. With selling, you can't give them notice until you have a confirmed offer, and then you have to give them 90 days.
Yeah.
So it could be potentially 120 days before somebody could take over the property, which means it could be a tough sell.
Yeah.
Especially with difficult tenants. And then when the tenants don't want to leave in 30 days, and it takes 40 days to get an RTO/DRS hearing, now you've got a real problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So just some things to be kind of cognizant aware of. You lose a lot of power to control of your property and lease if you go to the month-to-month scenario. So typically, we recommend termed leases, but Isabelle made a great point as well. If you want to qualify at the bank, if you're in the investing side of the business and you're raising money with joint ventures and you need to qualify for mortgages, the banks do like to see that yearly renewal, because then all of a sudden your cash flow looks a lot stronger on paper.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going to throw one other fun thing in here.
Do it.
If you currently have month-to-month tenants and they've been with you for that, let's call it a year, and you want to move them to fixed term, give them a choice. If they want to stay on month-to-month, give them their much higher month-to-month lease.
I love it.
Offer them the fixed term, which is still a little bit higher because you're raising the rents, because the rents are getting a little higher. But they have the option now. If they want month-to-month, they're going to pay for the privilege of having month-to-month, and you're getting an extra premium out of it. Or they get into the fixed term format. So something's going on out there. You must know we're wrapping up soon.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that. That's a great. You give them the choice to pick where they want to be. I find it challenging when you try to tell a tenant, or really this is just in life and business, if you give someone only one option, they're either going to do it or not do it. And likely, if you only give them one option, they feel like they're being pigeonholed or forced to take that option, they're not going to do it. I'm going to totally mute you right now. All right, we've muted Bill. Sorry, he's got a parade going by his house right now. But positioning a either or, and obviously, you're trying to, you're letting them make the decision, but you're definitely guiding them down the path you want them to take. Is a very great way to get out of a month-to-month situation if some of you are in that. That's a great tip, Bill. Perfect.
Also, I will discuss with them. At the same time, if you offer all different options just for marketing it, I think will be difficult. Like, oh, you can do month to month with this premium. You can do year to year. It's something maybe we can discuss after, but which one will you put out there? Because it's different clientele. It will look for different term. So that will be my discussion about that. And the other one I wanted to talk about, the lease to the term. If it's in the winter, and I talk to them too, if ever, this is the lease, it's September. I like September leases. I like all summer leases. So I'm saying, if you give me 2 months notice, life happened, you give me 2 good months notice, and it's in the summertime, I will probably be dealing that very more easily with you. It's easier to rent. So if I have leases that start on December, I will try my best to change it. And if they want to leave by June, I will say yes next time, because it's definitely more difficult for January 1st, for example. Not a lot of people wants to move on January 1st. They are celebrating. I don't want that. So I try not having this beside my garage that I rent as storage. I want them all for December or January or February, because they don't want to move out in the middle of the winter. So I like my winter lease for storage.
I love it. That's brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's motivating that if it's a storage and they're just going to sit there like, oh, it's Christmas time, I'm going to the New Year's, it's cold out, I'll pay some more rent. I'll deal with it later. And you likely just keep renewing that year rental contract for storage. But on the flip side, yeah, it's super difficult to find people in the December, January timeframe. You don't want leases coming up at that time of year. So, okay.
The trick that I learned quickly is, on the lease, the address must be there, the address of the landlord. So very often you just put your name of the business and your phone number or your own name, and you don't want your own address. And I highly recommend you don't put your own address. So what I went, instead of taking a postal box, I went to the lawyer address. So it's always helpful. I always put my lawyer address, and if there's anything they wants to really email, and never happened, but at least I'm legal, there's an address, and it's my lawyer, if ever they want to send anything. So, and the other point I will say, it's the legal names. Make sure you ask. We're not really allowed to take a picture or a copy of their photo ID. But if I'm doing this, they do the rental application, I say, okay, please send me a copy of your 2 most recent pay stub, as well as a copy of your driver license, so I can see your legal name, because I need to write the lease with the proper name. So if they send it by text, great, you have it. If not, then you can just look at it. But I will never give a lease if I did not see a photo ID with the full legal name, because I'm putting the whole, not just the, hey, Chris, it will be Christopher, look, somebody, the whole name needs to be on the lease.
Yeah, I didn't know that you couldn't, so you're saying you can't technically copy an ID?
No, not with the PIPA rules. So you can their driver license copy in your file.
This is totally one of the things I do, unless I do break the rules. I'm going to flip on this. I know with some of the credit check-in services, there's 2 out there, Single Key and Neighborly. I know Single Key is doing a big revamp on their credit score right now, and that's something they're not including. They actually get the tenant to upload a copy of a government-issued, not expired ID, and then you get that included in the PDF report that you get, and then you have it on the record. So, and you don't even have to ask for it, which is nice. I don't mind asking for it anyways, because at the end of the day, usually they object, oh, why do you need that? Well, I'm giving you keys to a $200,000, $300,000 property. I need to know who's taking those keys. So I think that's enough reason right there to ask for it, and that usually kind of ends that conversation. But if
they are willing to show it to you, then that's a red flag to start with. So.
Exactly. So move on if they don't want to share that information. So we have the question up here. It's been up here for a bit, and sorry, I'm gonna again find who asked this question. Leanne asked as well, where do you market your rental? So I'm going to take this one and see if Bill will add on to it. It really depends on your area. So typically, where you're looking to rent out, do your Google search. So if it's in Red Deer, you could do house rentals in Red Deer, 2-bedroom rentals in Red Deer, condo rental in Red Deer, whatever your product is, because I guess different product types and the number of bedrooms and baths will dictate your pricing. But Google that, and what you'll see, and make sure you get past the ads on the results, but you actually get down to the first, second, third, and fourth results. Those results, in the order they show up, Google has an algorithm that puts the most prominent searched items or most popular websites first. So if you do a search and you get Kijiji, then maybe Rent Faster, then maybe Facebook or something like that in that order, you should be focusing on the first couple ones there. So maybe it's Kijiji and Rent Faster. Now, the flip side or the caveat to this way this works is Google can't index all websites, meaning Google can't go in and read the content of all websites. So it may make a mistake. You might have more people, for example, Facebook. Facebook has a lot of information that Google can't see when it tries to read the website. You might have a lot more action and traffic going on in Facebook Marketplace because it's kind of a new tool right now. It's kind of coming into its own, but Google might have it 8th or 10th on the search results and not near first or second or third. So it typically works for all websites, especially websites like a Rent Faster where you can see all the information on it and they don't hide anything. But some of the social media websites where they're kind of becoming a bigger player in marketing, they can't always come up as high in the search results. So there you go. Bill, anything you want to add on that? Oh, we muted you. Sorry, what was that, Bill?
I had some great insight. I was adding it, and you missed it all. So
you're lost. And there's a
yeah. There we go. Cat keeps going back and forth. So yeah, exactly. That Google search is a phenomenal way to find out where. The question is, you have to think like a tenant, and you have to type in what you think they would search for. So I recommend using multiple variations. That 2-bedroom home or 2-bedroom upper or all kinds of different things, and just see what you come up with 4 or 5 times. And it depends on the market. When your market's tight, we're at Calgary right now is like 3.8% vacancy, which is crazy because we haven't been here for so long.
Yes, it's nice.
You might only need to put it out in one place, but when you're at 8 or 9 or 10% vacancy, you want to be pretty well everywhere.
Signs on your lawn.
Signs on your lawn, an ad up in the local grocery store for people in the neighborhood, local community newspaper if you have one that goes out, or a little community flyer. You want to be just about everywhere because you want people to see it, and you want to get traffic right away because you don't want to drag it out for 2 or 3 or 4 months because it's a slower market.
Yeah, so. I'm bad for doing this, but I try to do it more often. Is you should be at least marketing in 2 to 3 places, because if something's working really well, so for Calgary, for example, it's always been Rent Faster. I've always had the best success for getting the most qualified tenants from Rent Faster. But you want to be marketing in 2 to 3 places, and the reason why, or for that, is if things change. You might have there might be a newer service that's coming out there that has better whatever, and people are going to start looking there. But if you're always marketing in one place, and that marketing tool starts to dry up and it's not as good anymore, you won't know if it's your ads or what you're doing or your property if it's not shown properly, or is the marketing environment that you've chosen to use or platform. But if you market in 2 to 3 places and you realize all of a sudden, Rent Faster has been good for years and years for me, all of a sudden now Facebook is a place to be, well then you know where you should concentrate your efforts and put more effort into watching your ads.
And I guess the thing to add to that is, don't be afraid to pay for your ads. If it costs you $20, $40, $50, $100 to get a place filled versus being vacant for a month, holy cow, that's easy math.
Absolutely.
If I can add on this, do you have a second?
Yeah, more than welcome. Absolutely.
So you can also send a memo to all your other tenants saying, hey, I have a new suite and, you want that type of tenants. Or because right now they are calling me and say, hey, do you have anything like this stuff? That's a good problem for me to have. I don't have enough suite for the reference I'm getting. But definitely if I have one, I will ask them. And especially if it's duplex, that's the first person I will call, say, hey, now they are moving out. I don't know if you heard about it. Do you have anyone that you're thinking? So I go there first. And then also I don't know how you say that in English, but the loan sign, like the sign, like the realtor on property does still work, especially if you want people that like the neighborhood for school purposes, they want to stay in that neighborhood, so it does work. One little trick, sometimes I see a lot in the windows or the sign, this is the street, the sign is this way. People are driving, are not looking this way, so they won't see necessarily in the window or is your sign is this way. So very perpendicular to the street is very important to have this, and a big, huge phone number. Like those little, nobody will stop to have that. So a huge number. And then
don't write it in script either.
Sorry?
Don't write it in handwriting script, so it's hard to read.
Yeah, exactly. And then another one for me, rent faster in central Alberta. If it's really a high-end property, I will. The way I choose where to advertise depends my type of clientele that I want to reach. My millennials are looking into Facebook, the marketplace, and that's about it. The long-term tenants that I find more seniors will be still going on Kijiji. So depending the type of clientele, I always think about this, who I want in those, and will advertise at the places where they usually go.
Awesome. And I'm going to add on to that. I think that's a phenomenal tip, Isabelle. If you don't know what your clientele is, or you don't know what the different clienteles are coming from the different advertising areas, so like Kijiji or Facebook, create some ghost ads. So create a fake ad, throw it up with some pictures. Make sure you use your own pictures, your own description, but you can just throw it up and then get people calling. And then as you do your 10 screen questions, you'll learn very quickly the type of clientele from those different advertising sources. And then you can kind of pick and choose where you're going to advertise. And then the other thing is if they do call and they're interested, just say, oh, you know what? You can just say, I'm sorry, it's no longer available. If you actually when you get people calling and they're inquiring about that, that's your excuse to get out of the fake ad. But it's a great way to see how well the advertising is working. And this is also a good way to validate your pricing too. If you don't know the pricing in a market, pick a number that you want, see if the phone call rings. If the phone's not ringing, then there's usually three things that are wrong. The pricing's not matching it, the pictures aren't good, or your description don't match. Those things have to be all cohesive. If they're all in place, you'll get phone calls. If one of those things are out of sync, you won't get any action. And the same thing too, if you are getting a lot of phone calls but you're not booking any viewings, again, there's something out of play. Maybe your expectations, maybe the way you're screening your questions on the phone, there's a disconnect there, and people don't want to go to the next step of doing a viewing. And then the same thing, if there's a viewing, you have people coming out to the property, but you're not getting the application signed. Again, there's a disconnect in the process. Again, it could be how the property is being shown. The property does not match the pictures. The pictures look amazing. The property looks dismal, and so on and so forth. It's super late. We went 17 after overtime. So thank you both, Bill and Isabelle, for coming out. The way we wrap up the show is giving thanks for both these individuals for giving their time. They get a chance to showcase and talk about something that's important to them. So it could be a passion project, an interest, maybe a business venture, just share something that's important in their life. Isabelle, I'll give you the opportunity to go first. What's important to you and what would you like to share with the viewers?
Important to me will be my family, but something interesting for you. My daughter is starting her own company, so very excited.
Congratulations, very cool.
She's 10 years old. So I'm busy helping her out with that. It will be called Sylvan Soleil, so she's about to get her garment soon. But for me, I'm ready appraisal now. I'm with them, so very excited to. That's a new firm that I'm with for a couple days now, and I'm so excited. It's such a great team. So if ever you need market rent, even another way to find which market which rent you should charge, you can also hire an appraiser. So I'm with the appraisal and liking it a lot, going into houses, meeting people. So it very often too, for investor, when we want to have that legal basement suite recognized, it's important that you find an appraiser that understand the real estate, the landlord side, and the value of the suite compares to an illegal suite and all that stuff. So that's a good one. And on my own right now, for the last 20 years, what I've been working on is real estate investors. So I do have 14 doors now. We had 19 before, moved to Belize, sold everything. Now we're back into it, got 14 doors. So it was easy to get with the bank saying yes to us. And now they started to say, no, you have too many after 8 or after 10. So that's why I started. So my goal now is to, with my experience, when I run 157 suite from zero, like it was getting built, and I rent up in 6 weeks, move them all and deal with this. And it was month to month. So I met with so many people. So gauging who they are. And so this is the most important thing. You have to choose the right person. So it gave me a tremendous experience that it will take me years to get with my own doors. And then I did also 400 suite with senior housing, and some were independent condos, some were the care. So that gave me also a lot of experience. So with all that, I'm doing now joint ventures. So I'm helping busy people out there to make money and retired on rentals. So I do joint venture. In the last year, the joint venture partner was like, oh, the COVID, we didn't feel anything. Like, you're dealing with it. My, the RSP of my friends, they all went down. Mine, I still get my return and everything is fine. It's back up with real estate. The real estate will not go anywhere. So what I offer is that I don't charge any property management fee. I know I'm aware, and I take it it's all my houses that I have a joint venture or not. I feel it is always mine. And I very well my communication, my customer service, at Mother's Day, I send them a little text with a picture, or Canada Day, wishing them happy Canada Day. And it just helped to build that relationship. In the welcome basket, there's a pet gift. So everything is about customer relationships. So I help now busy people making money and retired on rentals, because I manage, and my husband is a handyman on top of being a power engineer. So we don't charge for most of the stuff that we can do, because we are part owner. So it's a good deal. The return on investment is higher because of those two services that we just offer with it. So
absolutely. And just to kind of throw in on a tip on, since you don't charge property management, but you're in a JV, so there's going to be some sort of split, like just arbitrarily saying it's 50-50. If you're not charging up front for property management, you're still getting 50% of that back and the profit from that JV deal.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I win. Yeah, we all win together. And the clients like it, right? To provide good, like even one of my biggest latest story that I love is how they don't show up to sometimes the viewing, and the person said, oh, I won't be able to make it in advance. She told me I won't be able to make it on the viewing because I'm at the hospital. I was like, okay, fine. We can postpone if I don't rent it today. And then she reached out, but I really would like it. Can you make another video of the suite? And anyway, I went to give her the rental application at the hospital. I even went then, did the lease signing at the hospital because she wanted it. She was really in the hospital for 3 weeks during the time it was time. And she's one of the really, really good tenants. But I went there, and when I said, so you're at the hospital for 3 weeks? And when I asked the proof of income, she sent me her statement, and I see Starbucks there. So I say, what do you like at Starbucks? How do you know I like Starbucks? So I brought her special coffee at the hospital and signed a lease there. Stories like this, and she's like forever, happy. So that's why I'm there, to give safe and comfortable and secure place for young family or single family, a single mom, a dad, and young professionals. So I really there's a win-win on every situation.
I love it. Awesome. Bill, what would you like to put some time to?
I'm just going to mention Cornerstone Youth. It's a group we help out here in Calgary on occasion, help feed youth and keep them busy before and after school, which is coming up in another little bit here next week. So,
yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Awesome. I'm going to throw one tidbit as the end of the show. Is I like what you said, Isabelle, about the customer service and being unique to each customer to show that you actually think about them. I do little gifts on lease renewals. I have one tenant who's a big outdoorsman, so he got a Cabela gift card, and then I can't remember, he did some stuff for me as well. Sorry, he did some work on the property. So instead of hiring a handyman at $100 or $150 an hour to come out the site, it cost me a $20 Cabela gift card for him. It replaced a door handle for me on the property. And then when we did a lease renewal, I delivered him a quart of firewood for the outdoor fire. So yeah, fun things like that. So anyways, awesome. We're going to end the show here, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. It is always every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, the only show dedicated to Alberta Landlords, the Alberta Shop Talk show. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Thanks, everybody. Great meeting you.